Greetings, folks, and here we are again with a delightful MIDI sound module from the early 90s. This is the Yamaha CBX T3, selling at a $450 suggested retail price upon its release as part of the Hello Music Pack in late 1992. And as far as early general MIDI devices go, it's a rather forgotten one compared to the well-known offerings from Roland and even Yamaha themselves that remain popular with vintage computer users. Although the CBX T3's origins are a bit more recognizable if you're familiar with the half-rack MIDI module scene. It's effectively a Yamaha TG100 from 1991, minus the LCD screen and patch editing buttons on the front. And of course, it came housed in a swanky off-white case, and it stands upright instead of flat, which, if I'm honest, are the two biggest reasons I bought one. It kinda looks like an old DSL modem or something, but relative to all the horizontal form factor MIDI devices I have, it looks quite unique. And I dig those individual LEDs below the power button, lighting up in time with the music for each of the 16 available MIDI voices. Below that are 3 mode option buttons to swap both sound samples and instrument layouts, and beneath that are the same selection of ports, indicators, and knobs seen on the TG100. Especially nice is the 3.5mm audio input port with a peak LED, letting you pass your PC's sound card through the T3 to either speakers or headphones. And around back are the expected assortment of ports for devices like this, starting with MIDI input, output, and the ever-handy through port, as well as 1/4-inch stereo line level outputs beneath where the power plugs in, which you can use with your own cables or with the unbalanced TS to RCA cables it came with. It even includes this neat little plastic cord management thingy to keep things tidy. How thoughtful. And then in the middle of the unit is the host section, which allows the CBX T3 to communicate with a computer over serial without needing MIDI cables at all. As Yamaha clearly implied in its advertising, the CBX T3 was intended to live out its life alongside early 90s personal computers, including capabilities, software, and aesthetics tailor-made to match up with the top-selling systems in North America and Japan back then, with bundles for IBM PC compatibles, Apple Macintosh, and PC-98 platforms alike. Really though, the only difference between bundles were the software and the included data cable. The unit itself was platform agnostic, functioning as a standalone MIDI playback device suitable for any setup supporting the general MIDI Level 1 standard. This practice was a growing trend in the early 90s, where various instrument manufacturers began tailoring their existing MIDI devices for use with home computers and not just in a recording studio. The CBX T3 in particular hit the market at around the same time as the Roland SC7 sound module, which was a cost-reduced Roland SC55 sound canvas, and nearly a year before the Roland SC55 ST, a fantastic little device that I've previously covered here on LGR. All of these had the same goal in mind, capturing the attention of multimedia-hungry computer users running Windows 3.1 and Mac System 7. I've got the Windows PC version of the Hello Music Pack here though, which I found new in box on eBay after an LGR follower on Twitter brought it to my attention. I've enjoyed owning a Yamaha MU80 for years now, along with a number of other XG-compatible devices, but the CBX T3 was completely new to me, and like the TG100 before it, the T3 was made before Yamaha had their extended general MIDI standard, so I was curious to try a pre-XG device like this. Well, other than my FB01, but that's an unrelated MIDI thing for a more frequently modulated day. The CBX T3 here is a digital sample-based rompler offering 28-note polyphony, 16-voice multitimbral playback, 192 preset instruments, 10 built-in percussion sets, and compatibility with general MIDI, Yamaha Disk Orchestra, and Roland CM64 sound modes. Mostly, sort of, we'll get to that in a bit. The T3 also uses Yamaha's Advanced Wave Memory System, which was their proprietary sampling thing for dynamically altering PCM waveforms with a supposedly more realistic tone. And finally, despite its lack of controls on the front, the CBX T3 can generate 8 digital effects with 6 forms of reverb and 2 delay variations. But without a screen or effect buttons, there's no way to control this from the device alone, so it relies on a MIDI sequencer to send out effects messages. And the Hello Music Pack includes a software sequencer inside the box, Passport Tracks, distributed on both 5¼ inch and 3½ inch high-density floppy disks with this Windows 3.1 bundle. I particularly enjoy the little diskette jewel cases that house the 3½ inch version. Oh, aren't they just precious? So in total, this $450 bundle got you everything you see here. Cables, software, extraneous Yamaha documentation, a combined 120 pages of manuals to read. I just love old MIDI module kits, and it didn't stop here either. Yamaha separately sold the CBX S3 shielded computer speakers for use with the T3 MIDI module for the sticker-shocking price of $300 in 1993. And the CBX K3 49-key MIDI keyboard and sequencer for another $400, taking the total cost for a complete Hello Music system on up to $1,150, not including the cost of the computer itself, of course. Ouch. Whatever though, all this stuff is comparatively cheap these days, at least until unscrupulous eBayers jack up the buy it now prices after this video goes live. So let's set up the Yamaha CBX T3 with the LGR Woodgrain PC and play a few MIDI tunes and DOS games using its different sound modes and see if we can compose a song using Passport Tracks under Windows 3.1. Alrighty, so getting the CBX T3 doing its thing out of the box is as simple as plugging in the included data cable to the host port around back and switching it over from MIDI to PC2 in the case of IBM PC compatibles. And if all you want to do is use the software Yamaha included, then it'll do just fine. If you want to play some DOS games, then it's not going to do the trick on its own. The T3 only comes with drivers and setup software for Windows 3.1, with the idea being that you'd provide your own MIDI cable and MPU 401 compatible interface for anything else. Nowadays though, you can run Soft MPU to use the T3 over Serial with tons of DOS games that expect an intelligent mode MIDI option installed. Good old Yamaha instruments, with those punchy drum hits and excellent piano samples. I'm not a big fan of their guitar sounds, and some of the synth pads feel a bit one-dimensional, which makes this not a great choice for a number of DOS game soundtracks, but still, it's got a sound that's unique from Roland, Korg, Akai, and the other competitors, and it's cool to hear their sample selection from before the XG days. And remember those 3 sound mode buttons on front? We've been hearing the first one so far, which uses Yamaha's default set of General MIDI Level 1 samples. The second is the Yamaha Disc Orchestra mode, which alters the instrument list to match the Disc Orchestra module tone generators like the DOM-30. These allowed recording and playback of MIDI files on floppies, and were often used as a tool for learning music and playing Clavinova song discs. And unless you plan to play or compose Disc Orchestra songs, it's not very useful here. That doesn't mean it's not amusing though. no. Then we've got Mode 3, referred to simply as CM, standing for Computer Music. The manual states this mode as being semi-compatible with the Roland MT32, which was still one of the go-to MIDI devices for DOS games back then. However, much like the MT32 backwards compatibility modes found on the Roland Sound Canvas, the T3 here doesn't always hold up its end of the bargain. So yeah, it does its best. And it's not the worst imitation MT32 I've ever heard, but no surprise, it doesn't sound entirely accurate either, so this really isn't the best option if you're wanting to play with MT32 soundtracks anyway. Plus there's the fact that so many of those general MIDI soundtracks we just listened to before that were written with the Roland Sound Canvas in mind. So while it does a fine job of it, all things considered, the CBX T3 may not be the very best choice for DOS games if you're looking for that classic general MIDI Rolandy sound. Though to be fair, the biggest selling point here from Yamaha back in the day largely had to do with making music instead of simply listening to it. That's where the included Windows 3.1 applications come into play. And yeah, I have the drivers installed, and it is connected through serial, also MIDI, we'll get to that. But yeah, once the drivers are going on here, which are these right here, then it knows what to look for. Just ignore the Sound Blaster stuff, we're not going to be using any of that. Now, the first thing we're going to take a look at here is the MIDI player that it installs, which is Passport MIDI Player, 1992 Passport Designs. And really, it's just your basic MIDI player with a nice little skin and some animations and playlist options. Actually, if we go to this Quick Tunes shortcut here, it's going to open one that's pre-configured with a whole bunch of demo songs. So let's just hear some of those real quick, and you'll be able to see me messing around with some of the things down here. So yeah, if you've messed with any number of MIDI players and software for Windows 3.1, pretty much get the idea. We've got a very basic mixer here, so you can individually solo or mute or change some of the stereo settings for the instruments, like let's just go with the electric bass. We can add the flute back in. Actually, is it going to change tracks? It is. We'll keep the kalimba solo then. Strings. Anyway. I can change the key. And of course, you can also change the instruments themselves. So if we want to change over the piccolo to something else, change it to a sawtooth. Anyway, yeah, just MIDI playback. It's pretty straightforward. Some pretty banging tunes. Rap track, as this one is known. Yeah, it was 1992, what are you gonna do? But, I mean, you know, it's just the stuff that you can customize that's kind of fun, if you enjoy customizing pre-done MIDI tracks. And there's also these animations that are going on down there, so Comes with 5 of them. The early 90s of it. Dancing flamingos, why not? You got them. There they are. Cadillac driving by. Disco, I guess. More hieroglyphics, but sure. And Night Drive. I rather like this one. And because this is the show that it is, we will add a MIDI file to this. Canyon.mid, just to hear what it sounds like. It's a little heavier on some of those instruments, like the harmonicas, some of the organs, and then pretty much any of my other general MIDI devices. That brings us to tracks, which is the last main thing we're going to be looking at here in this video. And this is much more involved in terms of sequencing and all that. And I mean, you know, it's not exclusive to the Yamaha device here or anything. It's just what this particular version of the bundle happened to come with. And in fact, later versions came with a version of Cubase called Cubase Lite. But yeah, Tracks version 2.22 is what my particular model, or this Hello Music bundle, came with here. And it comes with a number of pre-made things to just get an idea of what it can do. So let's open this one here, Driving. So the way that this works is pretty similar to a lot of other MIDI sequencers and digital audio workstations I've used over the years, but it's also got a whole slew of its own quirks, which make it rather odd to use, and there's a severe lack of like UI usability, I don't know. So the way that it does work, when it does work, is that you've got this whole track sheet here of 64 individual tracks that it can record to. And it can play them back in the song editor here, and these ones that are filled in with black are ones that are playing, and the ones that are not are empty or are just muted or whatever. There's just nothing in that particular track. But really this is consisting of a whole bunch of little step patterns. So if you go into the step editor here, you can see it, and this is just your basic piano roll type of thing with very granular bits of notes going on. I mean, you can go way in there. And this actually makes it really hard to just like click and add things to it. So you've got this really annoying big old cursor here, and then you got the eraser, which is a big old crosshair. And it's extremely precise and yet imprecise at the same time. Like say I want to just remove this top one, but not the bottom one. Okay. Whoops. No, that removed the one to the left, and it looks like I'm clicking the bottom one. And now I hate the way that this works. But, you know, fine. I've spent a few days now trying to figure out its quirks. And this is not the way to do it, like the mouse and keyboard. You can, but just, oh my goodness, don't. It's terrible. So I mentioned earlier that Yamaha sold a little 49-key keyboard for playing music on the T3. It's compatible with pretty much everything, but you know, that's the one they sold with it. However, I don't have that one, so I'm going to be using an Arturia KeyStep. I normally use this with my main MIDI synth setup, and you know, it's not the tiniest of things, but it's relatively small, and it should work here. I mean, it does work here. I've been using it for days with this. So we'll just get the I've got this MIDI cable plugged into the MIDI in on the Yamaha over there. And we'll plug that into the MIDI out of the KeyStep. And get some power. I need a bigger desk. Okay, so at the moment it is plugged in, but it is not going to be doing anything at all. So in order to do that, we have the MIDI setup here, and this just needs to be set everything to be on that CBX T3 driver, which is all serial. Sync source, we're not going to mess with that. But we have this through value here that we can change, and it's on nothing by default. But if you change it to channel 1, that will make it to channel 1 of whatever is on the track sheet. And in this case, it is synth lead 2, so yay, we've got synthiness. And yes, it is velocity sensitive. That's a neat little thing. However, one thing that I was a little bit bummed to figure out is that there is no way to actually adjust the reverb and the delay settings that are in the Yamaha CBX T3. It just goes to default settings. I can't adjust that with the Arteria no matter what. This doesn't have that kind of capability. But in the sequencer, I mean, this is what would handle those MIDI messages that would allow that to happen, but there is no way to change those messages. I mean, I've read through the manual a couple of times now, and I've read through the Yamaha and Trax manual individually, and yeah, there's all sorts of different things that you can do, but nothing in terms of sending out individual MIDI messages. You have some different filters and things for recording, so these are all the things that it will take in terms of the data, so you can do like pitch bend stuff, which is pretty cool, so. And modulation. So anyway, you do have the built-in instruments, and these are just as they are. You can't really change any aspects about them beyond some basic, like how hard you're pressing it and lengths and things, so. And just like the MIDI player from earlier, we have a lot of similar controls here, but just, you know, a little more granular, being that this is an actual sequencer editor thing. So we can solo just the synth, bass, and the drums, or just the bass and drums. How about that? We'll just keep that going. I got the conductor down here to change the timing and the tempo and what each note is going to represent. So put the tempo down right there, keep it real nice and slow. A conductor, yeah, you can change all kinds of different settings. Completely different meter if you want to switch up the entire way that the song is working. Your tempos can all be changed. You know, look at all these things. Let us go ahead and just start over and create a song, dang it, or something resembling music. So the first order of business here is to select a channel, because everything by default, there's not going to be any channels. So let's just start with drums, which is channel 10. It's just dedicated to drums at all times, channel 10 on here. So if we want to get that going, we'll change the through to 10 down here, and then we can control the drums with the keyboard itself. And if we want to record any of that, either by pressing things down here on this keyboard or clicking them in on that song piano roll earlier, we can click the record track thing up here, and this will now put things onto, not the song editor, the step editor, if we were to hit record. And we can have a countdown really for just one bar, and then a click track if we want in the background to make sure that we know what our beat is, so. And now it's down there. And the PC speaker is the click track and also the countdown, which I think is quite amusing. It doesn't go through any of this, so it's a completely separate deal. And now you might have noticed that that wasn't exactly on beat, and it pretty much never is because, you know, that's the nature of these things. So if we want to get this on beat, we can quantize. So I just selected things, and if we want to do the entire note, we can, or just the attacks, we'll just do the attacks. And we're gonna put it to, yeah, 3/2 is fine. And Include notes up to 35% ahead of the beat. We'll do 25% and see what that is. Well, a little overzealous with the snare there, but changed the downbeat to be on beat. So if we want to get that snare and move it around, this is where things start getting a little annoying on this program, because it's just so granular and it's hard to select things. Like, you know, we're going to get it down to 204 exactly if we can. But see, because the way I had the mouse cursor, I wasn't selecting the first part of the note. It put it earlier, so now it sounds, it's too fast. So I end up just clicking it in and typing it right here, and then we can just put 4, 0, and that sounds how I want it to. Yay, looping drums. And that's just going to loop that one selection, or this one track really. However, I put it in this song editor here. And that's fun. Like, I don't know, one of my favorite ways to make music of any kind, or just screw around with music, MIDI stuff, is loops. So we can add another instrument here. We'll put channel 1, and we'll select a synth. Neat. Okay, yeah, I'll just record something. So I'm on track 2 here, which is this one, the bass, but the channel over here doesn't change anything. So if I were to change this to channel 10, I'd be like, oh, and I'm on the drum channel, right? Nope. Through is still to 1, and even if I record to this, it's going to go through and record whatever my track is up here. The only thing that this channel selector thing in the step editor changes is if you're doing step recording. Let me see if I can demonstrate that. So let's put the articulation down. This is going to be how long it's going to have the note in there. Velocity, we'll put that up to 100. Off is fine. You got tuplets. So if I want to record with these settings using the step sequence recording, then we switch over and click this little key thing here. And the way this works is you don't use the record button down here, you just press things on your keyboard. And you can see that it put them on the step editor, timeline, piano roll thing there, and now we have something over here. There it is. That it's added track 2. So we can have that loop now if we want. Yeah! So anyway, that is the gist of it. You can either record stuff live, or you can do it step by step, or click things in here if you're an absolute masochist. This is the worst way to do it, but it can be done. All right, so enough of that. Let's go on to something that I did over the past couple of days. And like I said, I like to make these tracks and just sort of mix them live with loops. So this is one that has a whole bunch of different loops and some things going on here. Well, anyway, enjoy my little MIDI tune here as I'm going to be mixing it on the fly. Well, I petered out at the end there, but yeah, you get the idea. It's just fun. And that's about it for the Yamaha TBX T3 here. Excuse me while I mix a little bit of silliness in the background. But yeah, in terms of MIDI devices from the early 90s that is not from Roland, I quite enjoy it. You know, it's got that pre-XG Yamaha vibe going on that I really enjoy. It brings me back to being a kid, going to music stores and just playing around with the Clavinovas and different Yamaha keyboards and MIDI modules. And yeah, I'm just happy to have run across it, especially because of the aesthetic. You know, it stands up, right? It's kind of beigey off-white. I gotta say something else that rhymes, but not quite. It's full of neat little features and some things that I do wish worked a little bit better, but whatever, what are you gonna do? It's a consumer-oriented device from the early 90s. It's not meant for music creating professionals, even though it comes with some somewhat capable software in tracks here. But anyway, that's about it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and do let me know if you've ever used one of the T3s before in your MIDI experiences, or just any thoughts in general. I always like hearing what people think about these old MIDI devices, if anybody else enjoys them as much as I do, or if it's just me enjoying cheesy 90s things. That's all for this episode of LGR. Thank you very much for watching.